Hey fellas, PV2 Smurf here. PV2 Smurf here. PV2 Smurf here. Oh fellas, PV2 Smurf here. Hey fellas, PV2 Smurf here. Today we're going to be replacing all the gaskets in a base gasket kit because this 96 custom Softail base gaskets on the bottom are leaking. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all this stuff apart so that way we can replace the base gasket so that way it doesn't leak down on the engine. Actually, the actual spot where it's leaking is actually located right down here and it runs down, right down here and it runs down. What happens is it causes accumulation of oil and things on the inside of all this. So today we're going to be replacing all gaskets to get to this one, which includes all the ones going all the way up top to the cylinder head and everything. Step one, we're going to clean all the oil and everything off from inside around the jugs and everything else. That way it's clean before we start working on this, because you want it clean. Easier to get the bolts and don't worry about making a mess. Just get it clean first. I managed to shear this thing. I get 2 2x6s and center blocks on the bottom down here. And all I done was put 2 center blocks underneath them, so that way it's secure and it's not going to move. The way I managed to do this was with a low profile jack and another 2x6 sitting on it. Jacked it up with one hand and held onto the bars up there with the other hand, and that managed to get it where we needed it at. Once I got it on here, as I've told you time and time again, is you need to do the wiggle test. So it's on the blocks. It's not going nowhere. You also feel free to move this floor jack out of the way. Air breather for yours may have a different fastener on it. This one has a four-way screwdriver, 4-way screw. I'll stick this on here, we're going to remove it. Now if this is off, I can see that definitely in need of a new air filter. As you can see, this one's fell apart. We'll get this one. As I've said before, make sure you put your screws back inside the hole they come out of so you know where they go. To remove this cover, there's 3 fasteners. 1, 2, 3. And my fasteners may not be the same, but my 3 fasteners are 3/16 Allen threads, as you can see. Before we do any of this, the first thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery. Disconnect the battery on this 96 Softail. There's a bolt right here underneath the seat, rear seat. This may twist out the hand. You don't use a tool on it. Thread this out. Here's our bolt. Thread that out. Take the seat. Pull it off like this. There's your seat. Now, like I've always said, we'll put the nut back inside the retainer here that holds the seat. I just want to go on record to say that I am not a Harley mechanic or Harley Davidson certified mechanic. I feel pretty confident in my ability to do this. And if you're going to attempt a project, you should too. Now to remove the battery terminal, just going to remove one side. Use a 4-way screwdriver down in here and remove. I'm going to remove the negative one. The negative one is removed. Slide the wires out of the way. Put the bolt back inside the terminal end here. Tighten it up so you don't lose it. You want to make sure these wires are out of the way. While you're here, go ahead and check, see if your battery's corroded or whatever. So that could be the first sign of a loose connection. See, the battery terminal is disconnected. I can verify that by turning on the key and no lights come on. Now to remove this bolt that holds this center piece on, which holds your key switch and all that on, mine is also a 3/16 Allen socket. Seems to be a little loose. Yours may be a different one depending on if you've changed it or not. Also, we're going to remove this nut right here because this plate slides underneath the key switch. If you have to use a pair of channel locks or something like that because it's too tight, these are nice observant chrome pieces. You don't want them dirty. Best thing to do is stick a rag over the end of it, a clean rag, and try not to grip as tight so you don't mess up the threading on it or the appearance of it. Should come off just like that. And you didn't scratch the bolt off pieces. Don't drop it like I did. Now this is a nut. Has a stud sticking out here, so when you lift up on it like this, it should kind of seat in there, stay in there a little bit. This bolt has a washer on it. Goes to the bottom down here, so make sure when you take the bolt off, you get the washer with it. Now mine was put on with 3M adhesive tape to keep it from moving around and scratching the tank. It's seen here, so you might have to take and pry it a little bit harder if yours has got the same material on it. Flip it over and get the washer out of it. It'll come out. Put this bolt back in its home. Set this plate to the side. This section comes up. It should come loose. Now on the back side of this is the key switch part. So for the gauge cluster, this one goes to the white connector. This for some reason has white marks on the bottom. It goes the opposite way where the side smooth is where it connects. This 4-pin connector is what goes to the key switch, unplug it, and then right here is another connector, and that goes to the speedometer for the lights and the other things and powered it. Done that, we're going to snap this back on. Remove this vent tube that goes from one side to another because we're going to be removing the tanks for this. Set this to the side. There's also one longer vent. It's located here. It runs up underneath this tab. Beside this tab, or this bolt right here, runs on the right side and connects into the passenger tank. We'll be removing the tank, so we're going to get that out of the way. Now with all this out of the way, the next step we're going to do is drain the fuel out of it. So now the way I'm going to drain this fuel, first thing I'm going to do is unplug these spark plug wires from the coil. The longer spark plug wire goes to the front, the shorter one goes to the back. Pull them loose. I'm going to pop them off the coil here. Get them out of the way. Out of the way, no damage. I'm going to go ahead and remove this horn right here. Now to remove this right here, mine is a 1/2-inch bolt. Use a deep well. I'm going to hold the bottom of it so it don't bend the mounting bracket. Another bolt in behind it. It's also a 1/2-inch. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to hold on to it and break the bolt loose. Be sure not to slap your gas tank and scar it up. With that, we should be able to just remove the horn. Now here's the connectors for it on the bottom. Noted, I'm looking at this horn right here. The rubber covered one is located on the rear when it's mounted. The terminal without the highly padded rubber goes on the other one. Now, why is this important? Because you don't want to wire it up wrong and it blow all the time, or wire it up wrong and it not blow at all. Now to remove the wiring for this horn, bend this tab right here up, just enough to slide the wiring out. That way our horn's out of the way. Put the bolts back on here where they go. We don't lose them. The nuts, sorry. They don't have to be tight. Gotta not fall off. Set our horn to the side. Now, since mine is carbureted, this specific one is, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this line right here because it looks a little crusty anyway. I'll replace it, so I'm going to cut it right here, and I'm going to set me a funnel right here, and I'm going to run it right down into this trash can. Right there. So that way it'll flow right in there like it should. And put our wire cutters here, make sure the gas is off. Now after I moved it, I'm going to wiggle it around a little bit and set it down in there, and then it's going to drain out into my gas can. And if you don't ride it very often, then you might want to just do something, recycle this gas, do something else with it. But this one has been rode recently, so I know the gas int's good. Right in here like this. And once I turn this on, it should drain every bit of this out into the catch can. And I'm going to put it on reserve so it'll drain the majority of it out. I couldn't manage to get any of it come out by removing the fuel line, so after turning the thread on the petcock, as you can see, it started rushing out there, so I'm just going to sit here and let it drain. I ain't in no hurry, are you? Hey fellas, I want to appreciate you for tuning in on the video. If I have anything that I missed, could have done a little bit better or whatever, let me know in the comment section below. As always guys, remember, your rig, your call.